Okay, so this is the conclusion to the Claisen condensation video that got cut off the other day. If you haven't seen that, if you haven't seen chapter 21.4 Claisen condensation part 1, go watch that now. In that one, we saw where we made an ester enolate reversibly, right? So the base in this reaction is going to be sodium ethoxide because we have an ethyl ester. It's really important that you match that base with the ester component so that you don't mix your esters or hydrolyze your ester. We're going to end up with the enolate of this ester attacking a neutral ester of another one. We're going to kick out the ester, and then we're going to do some proton transfers. I'm going to do the mechanism down here, but go back, if you haven't looked at the video of this one and maybe worked some problems and maybe looked at it a little closer, do that before you look at this one. Okay, so this Claisen, it's not really, the book doesn't really call it a Claisen, we're going to make a ketone enolate, we're going to acylate it with an ester. Okay, let's just do the bottom one first. I think we were into it on the last video. So the first step, LDA, remember the structure of LDA, I'll get rid of that thing, is this diisopropyl amide. That's going to take an alpha proton from the ketone. We're going to get this enolate, and that's the product of step 1. Okay. Now we're going to, after you've made this enolate, and you'd probably do this at minus 78 or something, you know, you'd keep it cold, you'd add the base, you'd add the ketone to the base, so you only ever have enolate. Because remember, this enolate could attack itself. The enolate of cyclohexanone could attack neutral cyclohexanone in an aldol reaction, and that's not what you want. Okay, so once you have step 1, now the second step, I'll put this in a different color, is going to be to add, put it down below. Okay, so now this is the electrophile, the enolate is the nucleophile. We're going to get an intermediate where the enolate will have attacked the electrophile. Okay, so we have this tetrahedral intermediate. Remember, all these attacks on carbonyl compounds are going to give you a tetrahedral intermediate. Now the O- can kick out ethoxide. Again, this is a reversible process. And all of you are now going to say, well, that's it. We're done. That's the product. My mechanism is complete. And it is the product. This is what we're going to shoot for in the end. This is the whole reason you're doing this reaction. But this is not the final product. And the reason is you're sitting here with a strong base and relatively a strong acid. This proton is now an alpha proton sitting between two carbonyls. So the pKa of this blue proton I just drew is going to be about 10. pKa of ethanol 16. So this acid-base reaction is going to be quite favorable. All right, so the pKa here is 16. pKa here is about 10. These pKa numbers aren't exact. You don't have to worry about them being exact. Worry about ballpark, right? 6 orders of magnitude favoring this anion. And so the last step, and I didn't draw it. I think I drew it on the other one, would be some sort of H+. You always need a protonation step at the end of one of these Claisens to get the final product. Okay, so again, the Claisen condensation can be run 2 ways, just kind of like the aldol, right? You can run it with an ester where you use sort of the OR component as the base. And in that situation, you're going to make an ester enolate that will attack a neutral version of itself. So 2 molecules, right? Again, you have a lot of this. You don't have one of these. You have 10 to the 20th or something. Okay, so you make the enolate, it attacks a neutral version of itself. And then you go through this whole, you get the tetrahedral intermediate, the tetrahedral intermediate loses OR minus. OR minus takes the proton, and at the end you have to protonate it somehow. Or you can do this as a directed Claisen where you make an enolate, and you could make that enolate with an aldehyde, a ketone, an ester, carboxylic acid, amide, whatever. If it's got a carbonyl and an alpha proton, you can make the enolate. Again, cold, careful addition of the base, or of the carbonyl compound to the base. Once you have your enolate, then you add the electrophile. Enolate attacks the electrophile. You get a tetrahedral intermediate, lose OR minus. And this is a really important step that you won't want to do. You'll do this and you'll be like, I got the product, I'm good. But in fact, the OR minus takes that proton, gives you an anion that you can then protonate. You can also, and this is foreshadowing, you can do SN2 chemistry here, right? So you could, instead of quenching this reaction with H+, you could quench it with an SN2 electrophile, and this would give us an altogether different looking product. Right, so here, negative carbon kicks out bromide, and you get an alkylation event. All right, that's the end of the Claisen